Well, good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Thank you for joining me for folks' favorite Fandom Friday. Now, every Friday for 13 weeks now, I have had the privilege of visiting with people from the wider world of the Tolkien fandom. Writers and musicians, craftsmen, content creators, scholars, and more. Today, we welcome somebody whom I've had the privilege of working closely with over the last few months. Freelance painter, graphic designer, photographer, frankly, a multi-talented, multifaceted visual artist of all kinds, not to mention one of the nicest people you could ever hope to meet, Emily Austin.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, Emily. Thanks for coming. Now, first, the question that I ask everybody who comes on the PPP or today's Tolkien Times, how and when did you first encounter Middle-earth, and what is it about Tolkien's works that keeps you coming back?
Well, I am one of the generations that discovered Middle-earth when the Fellowship of the Ring hit theaters. And I was immediately captivated, and I think it was just the sweet spot of being 12 years old and just your whole world being opened up.
Did you do that on purpose?
Yeah, I'm sure.
That's a perfect age to be introduced to Middle-earth, actually.
So. It really is.
Yeah.
So what keeps me coming back is it's just that perfect blend of beautiful writing that I always appreciate, creative inspiration that I can continually draw from, academic interest, and of course some nostalgia and love for the community and people that I've been able to meet through Tolkien.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, tell us how your art and your love of Tolkien's works blended together. Which came first? Is this a chicken or egg question? Do you have a central touchstone to how you approach illustrating Tolkien? And if so, what would you say it is?
I've loved art from a young age. I can remember being in kindergarten and drawing horses out of one of those big books of breeds from the library.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I honed my skills a lot through that. But when I started to really get into reading, I just often had an urge to bring to life something that I was reading about in a visual way. And so it was pretty natural to have a desire to illustrate Tolkien when I started to get into it. And I think I just kind of got into a groove that it became a home for my artistic self. It's not the only art I do, but it's certainly some of the most comforting and familiar art I do. It's like, just slipping into something that is so comforting and cozy, and I always enjoy it.
Good. What was your first Middle-earth piece? Do you remember the first time you're like, oh, I'm going to try to draw this?
I know I definitely did a lot of like Hobbit hole sketches and tried to draw the elven rings and just, little things here and there.
Nice.
But, Tolkien's own art also has been a big touchstone for me as far as style and as a guide for some of the scenes that I like to do. But I also like to pull in lesser known or lesser explored scenes and try to bring those to life.
Well, now I'm tempted. I got to find out what some of the lesser known scenes are. Well, let's take a look through your collection one of these days. Your work, of course, has featured recently in the 2023 Tolkien calendar. As a result, your name and your art have become a little more recognizable. What do you think the Emily of 10 years ago would say about where you are now?
I think she would be utterly flabbergasted. Would not have ever thought that my art would be in the Tolkien calendar, but it was certainly a great honor. And I hope to be able to do more projects that are, appreciated and loved by Tolkien.
Well, it's some well-earned spots, I will say. It's a great piece. The calendar itself is a great piece, but your works in it are certainly some of the highlights.
Yeah, well, and it was a wonderful combination of different artists. I think we all complement each other very well.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It was a really good mix. And folks, if you don't have that calendar, I know it's already August by the time you're watching this, but please track one down. It's worth it just to have the pieces of art from these incredible artists, many of whom are, I'm not going to say new because they've been around for a very long time and they've been creating art for a very long time, but they're new to the spotlight and they deserve to have their works seen by more people. So please track that down, folks, if you haven't already. Well, you talk about creating works that will be appreciated in the Tolkien fandom. That brings me to the book that Shawn and I have written, Why We Love Middle-earth. It comes out just a few weeks from now. We had the privilege of working with you as you created our cover art and our interior illustrations. Tell us a little bit about what makes the process of designing a book cover and interior illustrations different than standard work, than your other work, things that you decide you want to create. And this wasn't your first cover, was it?
It wasn't my first cover. I've done a few pieces for Signum University. I did the cover for Serena Higgins' book, The Inklings and King Arthur, an academic title. So those are some favorite previous book projects that I've done. But one of the differences when you're doing something that's a commission for one thing and also going to be on a commercial product is I think there's more considerations that you have to keep in mind. And it usually will go through a longer process of development before doing the final piece.
That's true, isn't it?
Which,
We found that to be the case. Oh, boy.
But it's important, and I think it ends up making the final piece stronger.
I think so too.
For as we talked a lot about the cover illustration, especially, you want that to be something that's really going to strike people and bring in readers. So when I'm just doing something for myself, I only have to please myself and do it exactly how I see it in my head as much as possible. But there's a little more to it when you're doing illustration.
I imagine probably a little more frustration too. I know how many times we've had to go back and forth between us, me and Shawn, our publisher, and just and people in general trying to give us some input on what works and what doesn't. But I think as people will see the final work, they can see that the work you did was absolutely fantastic, and we are excited and proud to have been able to work with you.
Well, thanks.
Wouldn't have it any other way. So, what are the new projects you're working on these days that you can tell us about?
Sure. Well, I will mention too, as I was telling you earlier, I like to do lesser known pieces from the text. There's one passage when Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are leaving Ithilien and they're going through some like yellow gorse bushes. I was really struck by that. So that's something I've been planning in my head for a while and I haven't actually done yet, but it's in there. So be on the lookout.
All right.
And another one that I'm working on, which will be in the Beyond Bree calendar.
Oh, that's always a treat. Yeah.
Coordinated by Jeremy Edmonds. He very kindly asked me a few years ago to contribute, and I've been doing it for a few years now. And so I tend to pull out an idea that I've been thinking about for a while and try to, make it work for the calendar theme. And so this year's I'm working on a piece illustrating the scene when the hobbits wake up on top of the Barrow Down, surrounded by, or they're surrounding the standing and the sun is about to set. So I will show, this is a draft. That's going to be
properly creepy. Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, so this is a draft of the piece. And I'm actually working on making it more creepy. So when I do the final piece, I probably will maybe muddy the colors a little bit and focus a little more on like the yellow and the blue as a contrast. But this was to get kind of at least the placement and everything set up.
Yeah. I love that.
The piece as it is currently in formation is here. And so people can see just the yellow that I've laid down first. And I usually work from light to dark. So I put in the lightest colors first, and then I will continually make it darker over time.
Which, well, certainly given the subject matter, that makes really, really good sense on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a fantastic piece.
Contrast values, because that's what really will, set a piece apart in the end. Yeah,
really will. That's where, for that scene in particular, the emotion will hit the viewers. That sort of terrifying, what happened, where are we in this otherworldliness.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great piece.
And I still want it to be pretty, but I also want it to be a little unsettling. So sometimes that's a hard line to walk. So I'm excited to...
I imagine it would be. You don't want it exactly to be homey and welcoming.
No. Not completely.
Definitely not. Well, where can people find your work and follow you on social media?
People can find me at emilyaustindesign.com or at emilyaustindesign on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, but I'm most active on Instagram. And my website also has a link to my Etsy shop.
Oh, great. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, Emily. I really appreciate it. I hope we can get you to come back sometime.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, folks, that is it for today's Fandom Friday, but come back next week to meet another of your fellow Tolkien fans and maybe even learn what niches of the community you might be interested in exploring. And of course, if you're interested in joining me here on today's Tolkien Times on a future Fandom Friday, Let me know by emailing bardaman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Quick reminder that the Patreon for the TTT launched over the last weekend. Please consider supporting the show so that I can keep making it your best source for high-quality daily Tolkien content. You can get things like an ad-free feed, hang out with me and the other patrons, priority for mailbag and readings, and even a bonus episode every week. So go to patreon.com/Tolkien Times and sign up today. And please join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times as we wrap up week 13 with Silmarillion Saturday. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, follow or subscribe on your podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Finally, in the words of Faramir, go with the goodwill of all good men.